1. Salutations fam, DarkslayerArim here. Today's video is going to cover the new content coming to Dragalia Lost. We've got a new story chapter, the much anticipated High Mercury trial, and a new banner to summon from. The new story chapter is supposed to cover the protag's brother, Leonidas, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of person he actually is. I won't cover the story chapter further in this video since I intend to upload my playthrough of it at a later date. First up, we're going to talk about the highly anticipated High Mercury trial. Many people have been building up their win units in anticipation, and I'm no exception. We don't know how high the stat requirements will end up being to clear the quest, but we can make some guesses based on previous high dragon trials along with the mechanics of the Mercury dragon battle. First off, bog res is going to be a necessity for your adventurer. Currently, the units with bog res are Lin Yu, Maribel, both Ranzels, Louise, Lowen, Eleonora, Francesca, Kuhai, Su Fang, and Pia. Based on the nature of recent units being buff-based to some degree, along with the only win healer having buffs, units with a double buff ability will likely be very useful in the fight, alongside units to buff them. You're very likely going to see Lowen and Gala Ranzel in many of the fights. Personally, I'm training up Gala Ranzel for the fight as well. I would ideally be teaming with a Lowen, a Louise, and a Maribel. This is just kind of the speculation I have in my head. But you have to remember, this is all just speculation, and we'll find out more detailed information about that fight soon, so look forward to that. Now we're going to talk about the Summons Showcase. The Visions of Amity Showcase will feature Silas as a 5-star Wind Lance, Yue as a 4-star Fire Axe, and Pazuzu as a 5-star Wind Dragon. Silas is our first 5-star Wind Lance, which means he'll have the 15% HP buff co-op skill. His skills seem pretty good, to be completely honest. He's got an offensive skill that inflicts poison and a secondary skill that gives skill haste, along with a random secondary buff. The randomness of the buffs can hurt his usefulness in certain situations, but individually, each of the buffs are pretty good. Depending on how difficult it is to fill his skill gauge, the second skill can end up being extremely powerful. Now, the ability he has, Last Recovery, seems like a skill that's going to be very useful, but it'll ultimately come down to how strong the HP regen actually is. His freeze res is going to be useful for content like Imperial Onslaught and some of the Void battles, but ultimately won't be of much use in the High Mercury trial. For his third skill, he has a 13% strength boost when he has at least 70% HP. These kind of skills tend to be really good, and they can really contribute heavily to your damage and your DPS. The downside to these kinds of skills is that when you take a lot of damage, you can very quickly lose a lot of your DPS. This can be especially detrimental in higher level content due to the time nature of the fights. However, Silas's Last Recovery ability can help mitigate this issue, because if the HP regen is strong enough to get him back to 70% HP, he'll basically have a second chance to make use of that buff if his healer isn't really taking care of that. Next, we're going to be talking about this dragon, this JoJo's Bizarre Adventure looking dragon. Pazuzu's offensive skill gives a 5% debuff to defense along with inflicting poison. Depending on the damage modifier, this could end up being very powerful. Pazuzu seems to be continuing the trend of dragons that give a lower percentage stat buff alongside a secondary buff MX Unbind, because you'll notice Gilgamesh has a 50% strength buff along with a shadow res buff, and Cymerg had I believe a 40% buff along with a buff to your mode bar, and your mode bar decreasing. So basically, Cyborg increased your HP and gave a buff that made it easier for you to break enemies in overdrive. Anyway, in a similar fashion to Lin Yu and Long Long, Pazuzu seems like he's pretty much made to work well with an adventurer that debuts alongside him. There isn't really much information available on the third character appealing on the banner, so I'm going to talk very minimally on her. She's a defense type axe unit with an offensive skill and a buff skill. Whether she functions well in her role will depend heavily on the buffs that she has. Overall, I think this is a good banner with good characters, but I'm personally going to save my resources due to the upcoming Fire Emblem Heroes crossover that we're getting after it. There isn't any indication that these characters will be limited, and in my experience with Gacha, crossover characters pretty much are always limited, so I'm going to save my resources for that. Another important thing to note about this banner is that it is still possible to summon 5-star worm prints from this banner, even though there's not any on the focus or on Raid Up. The change to the summoning mechanics is set to be implemented after this banner. Overall, make sure you consider your unique situation before you summon. And that's going to be it for this video. This is DarkslayerArim signing off. Thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day.